joining the stream. I wanted to take a look at a few king and pawn endgames today, and then we could do a few game reviews. But I guess what I was thinking about, yeah, I was starting with king and pawn endgame reviews. These are pretty interesting. I mean, it depends on kind of where you are, in terms of your chess development. But there are some that are very basic that I think are extremely important, and then there are ones that are less basic that will kind of, instruct how to go forward on these things. Hey, good morning, Aphelion. Thank you very much for joining the stream. Thanks for being here. So I guess what I would say here is, the most basic pawn endgame is one called king space king pawn, and basically there, this pawn, right? Okay, so here, if you're white playing against black, right? Your goal, and you have a pawn. Your goal is basically to try to get your goal here is basically to try to get the king to be stalemated, right? Sorry, to avoid stalemating the king, to get your pawn to get your pawn advanced to d8. So that's the goal here. And with that in mind, I mean, basically what you can do is, and actually, just let me see here if I can get it to load. There's a very basic one, right? It's just your idea is supposed to be to get this, if your goal is to get the pawn to be, queened, this position is the most instructive one. Hey, welcome. Good morning, chess fan. So basically here, we can take this situation from both white to move and from black to move. Hey, good morning, Reckless. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining. So this king space king pawn, this idea, whether it's white to move or black to move, there's two different techniques that are going on here. What the main idea is white needs control of the queening square. So if the king goes this way, or if it's black to move, then if the king moves to one side, the king goes to the other side. And then this king controls all three of the squares needed for the pawn to move forward to the queening square. So that's very easy. If this king is here, this king is here, this pawn is here, and it's and basically the king it's basically black's turn to move. Then white moves, and this queening square is here. If it's the other way around, if it's white to move, it's still a win. But it uses a different technique. So here, with this pawn this advanced, this pawn can move here. The king goes here, the king goes here, the pawn goes here, the pawn goes here, the pawn goes here, and the king has to move up. I don't know. We can take a look at some more advanced ones. Very advanced king and pawn endgames are kind of complicated. I guess what I would say is that what's interesting about the king and pawn endgames is that they do involve a lot of counting, and that is something to just consider. But king here, pawn here, king here, pawn here, king there, king there. This ends up controlling the queening square. But what this sort of leads to is the concept of opposition. So if the king's here and the king's here, and there's an odd number of spaces between them, basically the side that has the opposition is the one who is not going to, or who's basically not supposed to move. If the king goes to one direction, so like here, and then the king goes to the other direction, it would be said that white has the opposition, because if the king has to move sideways, the other king can maneuver around and basically get an extra file here. This is a bigger topic. This idea of king versus king opposition is easy, but this king versus king opposition is like it's easy to understand why this is important. But yeah, this so here with this king blocking this with this king opposing this king here, things are fine. But there's another situation, which is basically if the king is not in front of the pawn. So this is the situation in which the king was basically in front of the pawn. If the king is to the side of the pawn or the king is behind the pawn, then the situation is different. So in this case, black actually has a draw from either side to move. We were looking at king and pawn endgames, and then we were looking at we were going to do 3 game reviews. So if the pawn moves up, the king moves here, the king moves here, the king moves here, the king moves here, the king goes. So basically the oops, sorry. Let's try this again. So if the king's here, pawn's here, king's here. In this case, white can't successfully advance. So the king always moves back, basically vertically. The king goes here, the king goes here, the king goes here, king here, king here, king here. And this, basically at every point along here, black has drawing chances. So if the king tries to advance, the king goes in this direction, king goes in this direction, pawn goes here, king goes here, king goes here. It was weird. I was confused by the eval shift. The eval is acting weird because it doesn't know whose move it is. Interesting. Anyways, yeah. So that's the very basic idea. Is if the king is in front of the pawn, then it tends to be a win. If the king is behind the pawn, then if the king is in front of the pawn and there's opposition, the king, the white side wins in this case. If the king is behind the pawn, then black has drawing chances. We can take a look. Basically, there's classic classic endgames here. I was thinking we could probably look at basically there's a few different ones. There's ones where white can basically force an advantage, and there's ones where white can't force an advantage. Getting the technique right for both is important. So here's one that can be taken from either side. So let's say king's here, pawn here, here. This is from a world championship match between Lasker and it's from a world championship match between Lasker and Reichhelm, and we can look. Okay, so if it's white to play here, then white wins, and if it's black to play, then black draws. And it basically depends on how quickly the sides can get advanced. So the point is, the point in this endgame is basically looking at where the routes for white to advance are. White's going to have the ability, or white's going to have the ability to get in through the C file, and black does not have the corresponding ability to get in through the anywhere on this side. Basically, in an endgame position, in a real life endgame, odds are you're playing in a long time control, and odds are you have plenty of time left. So in this situation, what it's mainly about is looking at the key areas of advance. So there's the C4 pawn here. There's this A4, H4 and H5 point here. But basically, black's game is going to be about defending the B5 square. This is so right, because if the king's points of entry here, right, so getting the king through on this side require going to this square, and if the king's point of entry require going through this square, then black can basically play on the other side of this and end up in a situation where he's winning. So do you see what I'm saying? Like, basically, if we're looking at this pawn endgame by itself, the important points to look at are the areas where either side can get through. For black, this is only on the H file. For white, this is both on the H file and through the D3, B5 diagonal. And finding out how you're going to counter that from the black side. So as black, you want to figure out how to control B5. And as white, you would want to figure out how to control H4 and H5. So basically, white wants to get his king to either B5, right, or G5, which is this square. So white's king can only get through so basically white's king can only get through this square, this diagonal, and through this diagonal. And black needs to come up with a way of successfully defending against this. So the goal for the goal for white is is basically to exploit the idea of opposition to try to get through here. All right. So let's take a look. So the solution here basically is king to b1. King to b1 is interesting. This requires, again, like looking at the broader context of how big the basically how big the space between these pieces is. There's the idea is basically trying to get through b1 through c4 into b5. So yeah, king to b1. Hey, welcome, Julio. Thanks for joining the stream. King b7. King c1. king c7, king d1, king d7, here, here. It is interesting, by the way, that the engine finds this pretty much instantly. Hey, welcome, Forky, and welcome Until You Lag. Yeah, this is really interesting. So basically, this is a method that White's using. So let's go back and look kind of what happened in this game. Is that basically White is pushing the king further and further towards the king side. The king goes A1 to B1 to C1 to D1, and then in through the H file. And then this king can't really get through here. So this king is basically pushing the king in this direction. And then once the king is misdirected towards defending towards the H file, then the white king is able to get in through this diagonal. That's the point of this endgame. That's what's sort of interesting here. And king B1, king C1, king D1. And now with the king this far displaced, the white king's going to be able to get in through C4. So king C2, king D8, king C3, king C7. So here basically black can't black can't keep the opposition because in this case white's going to get in through here. Black has used the concept of opposition in order to defend. And by the way, opposition is this. Opposition is the idea where there's an odd number of squares between the king. I was talking about this in the earlier, more basic king and pawn endgame. But the idea here is, with 5 squares between these kings and white to move, it's said that black has the opposition here, right? Because it's white to move, there's an odd number of squares between the two kings, either on the same file or on a diagonal, and the white king can go in the opposite direction. So here, because it's white to move, it's basically black has the opposition. So king c7, king d1, king d7, king c2. And the idea of white is to basically eliminate the ability of black to maintain the opposition. Here, technically black still has the opposition, but black can't maintain it after king to c4. That's the point, and that's the maneuver by which white wins this endgame. Do you see what I'm saying? I hope this is kind of understandable. If it's not, or you have any questions, please just ask. The idea here is basically to try to outmaneuver the black king by taking squares where black can no longer successfully oppose. So this maneuver here is basically this king is going in this direction, and then cool, yeah, thanks. Why king b1 is better than king to b7 on the first move? Because basically king to b1 allows the counting of the moves so that the king to b1 allows the counting of the moves so that this king can't oppose. So if we go to king to b2, so let's check the king to b2 line. So here, very good question, and we have the line for that too. King to b2, king to b7, king to c3, king to c4, king to c3, king to c7, king to c4, king to b6, and basically black can move back and forth here and never let the king to b5. If white tries to advance without outmaneuvering the king first, then it doesn't work. What's important is that white is able to outmaneuver the king. So if you go king to b7, right, you don't have the ability to oppose the king. This maneuver, so king to c4, forcing black into a situation where he can't maintain the opposition, isn't possible from king to b2. So in this case, king to b2 first, and black basically is able to maintain the opposition and play on b6 and a6. So play on this file blocks off the king. So king to b6, king to d3, king to c7, king to e3, king to d7, and then this is basically white's best attempt to get in through the h file now. But there needs to be that kind of outmaneuvering effort. So king to h4, king to g6, and you basically have the same situation in which black is in which case black is successfully blocking the entry squares for white. So the main point of king to b1 as opposed to king to b2 is to get black to move out of time. So here, with this line, it's a draw because black can always maintain the opposition and he can always kind of, he can always basically find a way to be in the correct squares where he needs to be. Basically what needs to happen is black needs to be on either a6 or b6 when white plays king to c4. If you can outmaneuver the king by forcing the king over to the king side before, hey, thank you very much for the file, Wig. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining the stream. So yeah. So basically king to b1 is the way to push the king over to the king side so that the king can't move backwards quickly enough. Because like this king is, okay, so this king goes to b1 and he's moving in this direction. And this king can't both defend on the h file and defend on the b file at the same time. So if the king outmaneuvers like this, then this king goes to c4 and this king can't get in. This basically blocks off right here. This king to c4 and black can't maneuver. So it's basically by forcing the king to the king side and then forcing the king to quickly dial back to the queen side that white is able to outmaneuver black here. I hope this is somewhat understandable, but basically the idea is that white is pushing over to the king. He's basically pushing towards the king side, and black has to be in a position where he's also defending and being ready to defend on the king side, and then white can use that to get over to c4 more quickly. So king b1, and then with king to d7, white king plays to king to c4, and he wins the b5 square in the fifth rank, which is what he needed. So king to b2, and basically black can't successfully defend. So yeah, king to a5, and then and by forcing the king basically over to defend against the king side, white is able to basically in this case, white can't outmaneuver the king. The king provides matching defense. But this, this is interesting. So king to b7, and basically by forcing the king over to the king side, forcing the king up, but yeah, actually, I want to spend a little bit more time on basic endgames, just basically because, I think we have, again, tell me if I'm going too slow, but this is one of these things, like, these analyses are super helpful for me, to be honest, but I actually am thinking, this is actually, so this is a really interesting position, but I feel like, what you would actually see in kind of a chess class is between, is most likely focusing on really basic endgames. This is helpful for me, looking at these endgames. This is pretty high-level stuff, but yeah, I guess what I would say is basically this idea is pretty complicated, and I'm not sure that I can kind of give it justice if I'm just looking at, I hope this is helpful, but at the same time, in a real situation, you would need a lot of time to kind of look this over. This wasn't really a position that was meant to be solved in a 15-minute idea. The main concept, I think, is valuable, which is basically that you're pushing over the king. You're basically pushing the king towards defending on both sides at once, and then outmaneuvering on the side where the king can no longer defend. But yeah, the basic king and pawn endgames that I'm kind of interested in looking at, and what I think might be very helpful is just looking. I hope you guys. It would be curious. Basic opposition is what you would actually learn in a real chess course. So the more high-level stuff, this is mostly helpful for me. But yeah, king and pawn opposition, that's important. Yeah. So I guess what I would say is this this kind of outflanking idea is a real component. So I think again, like this type of thing, this type of play is a really important thing to demonstrate. So with the king and pawn here, again, this is what you would actually learn in like a class or whatever. The other stuff is stuff that's helpful for me, but again, giving it more time, doing it this quickly is difficult. But in this case, let's load this position. If it's white to move, basically black can match. So the idea is, white wants to find a way to advance on one of the sides here. And if the king goes to the opposing side, white can basically take the opposition. So hey, good morning, Anch. So let's look at this. Basically, how's white going to advance and win this position here? So if the king goes here, the king goes here, the king goes here, the king goes here, there's no way to really make progress as white. If black has the opposition here, right, then white is never going to really be able to advance this. White's going to move to either side, and black's going to move to either side. So how does white solve this problem, right? Or how does white make it so that he can advance to the 5th rank? And the answer to that question is d3. So d3, right, is the way to do this. So now if the king goes to one direction, if the king goes to c6 and the king goes to e5, then basically, this situation is different, right? So white has burned this tempo, and that was what was really important. If the king goes here, then then basically the white king has control of these squares and can march this pawn forward. But if in the other case, if black has to move backwards, then white basically controls the 5th rank. White can do this again, set up basically the same position with this pawn facing and ready to move forward on d4. On d4, the king goes to one side or the king goes to the other side, and basically the same process continues again. So here, king to d4, king to b7, king to e6, and the pawn can just and basically this king either has to go back or has to go matching on the other side. So so that's the idea of the idea of opposition. I hope this is helpful. Again, like this is what you would learn in a chess class. The more complicated ones, basically build on this. But this is kind of the most basic concept. If you're just matching one side on the other side, this is this is basically a good idea for white to match the king on the king side. So that's what I'm basically getting at here. That's what I'm basically saying. This lesson, all the lessons are sort of like this. They're just way more complicated. They involve the I mean, that's the goal, right? Free lessons over the stream is the goal. So king to e4, king to e5, e6, king to d4, pawn to b3, and then black can either move backwards or move to the side, but basically white's going to push forward here. Hey, good morning, Aiden. Hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Lauren. But yeah, so basically here, black is basically forced to move to the other side, white is forced to move to the other side, and this is the way that white secures the opposition. This comes up in a lot of endgame positions. This is important. So yeah, king to c4, king to c6, and then basically this white king is matching the black king. If black is forcing white to move, then doesn't d3 off move 1 win? Yeah, it does. No, I was just trying to demonstrate something. But yes, d3 immediately is the winning line. d3, king to c6. I was trying to demonstrate the concept of opposition here. Basically, if white's forced to move first, then black can basically go to the opposing side. If white needs to find a way to eliminate this problem with this king basically going up against this king, and the way to do it, the way to move out of time as white, is d3. So, anyways, d3, king goes to one side, king goes to the other side, or king goes to this side, king goes to this side. And white is just better. So that's the point. That's the way that white, wins in this particular position. And the more complicated ones, the ones that I'm talking about here, basically involve this concept at a more sophisticated level. So king to b7. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, Aiden. I hope that's helpful. This idea here basically is the pawn move putting it out of sync, right? Is the goal. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. But yeah, that's what I'm getting at, Aiden. I think I sort of don't know exactly how. I guess I would say that it's new to me to kind of how to teach this the most efficiently. But we have very complicated king and pawn endgames that will take a lot of time to think about. But we have this concept which really needs to be very solidly demonstrated first. So king to e4, king to d6, and this is a demonstration of what how the white king doesn't advance. Basically, if black is forcing white to move here, then black can always maintain the maintain side to side here. But the way to do this is with this easy pawn to d3. With pawn to d3 and forcing things to move out of time, this king goes here, this king goes here, and now this king is out of time, right? So this idea here basically is this king either has to go backwards or it has to go to the side. But it's up to black to kind of determine what to do here. And with this in mind, basically this type of endgame becomes a lot more easy. What's kind of but anyways, what's interesting about this, I think what's interesting on this topic is basically this, that pawn move is very important because yeah, it gets it to move out of sync there. So yeah, interesting. And I think that is good. That's a good way to play it. But yeah, now this king basically controls that, and this is solid. This is the way to do this. Anyways, that is a demonstration of kind of a more basic idea. This king space king pawn endgame, this is interesting because it basically shows how to get this to not move or basically not be in time, which is basically king space king pawn only works if you're on the last stage of the board, right? So if the king space king pawn idea here, or sorry, flip the colors. This only works because black is on the last square of the board. If it's black to move here, so black moves here, this king goes here, and basically this king controls the queening square. This is with the king. This is basically with the king having an advantage here. So if the king goes here, basically, if it's white to move, so that's basically a demonstration of if it's black to move, then the white. So if it's black to move, then white takes the queening squares by moving to the other side. But if it's white to move here, the white king never actually has opposition. But because the king doesn't have the ability to move backwards, it doesn't have the it basically doesn't have the same drawing chances that it normally does. So the king goes to this side, the king goes to this side, the pawn goes here, the pawn goes here, the pawn goes here. And even though the black king has been able to maintain the advantage, or was initially able to maintain opposition, now it's run out of squares. The natural square for the king to go, the drawing square for the king to go to would be like king to d9 here. Basically one square off of the board. But because that space isn't available, then this king is forced to go here, and the king can go here, and then the king controls the 3 squares that are needed. What's important, I think an important distinction on this is basically to go, to go back and basically, look at king space king pawn moved up by 1 file. So here, so king basically here, king space king pawn on this rank doesn't work. Because here, the king, if it's white to move, and white doesn't have the opposition, white goes to one side, the king goes to the other side, this pawn goes up, and we're using basically the same maneuver as, in basically king space king pawn with the with white to move, but basically d5, king to d7, pawn here, king here, king here. And now this king has drawing chances, or this king draws because black can basically seal the opposition. Basically black can seal the opposition 1 file back. So that was what was important. Now pawn here, king here, and there's good chances for the opposition, or basically white has forced the king back onto d8. But yeah, interesting. This ended up being a pretty interesting way for this king to draw here. This king can basically force, this king basically can't force the pawn to move. The king basically can't force the king to move up in the same way that the king space king pawn earlier position was available. So basically, with the king on the last rank, the king space king pawn works. With the king not on the last rank, the king space king pawn does not work. So that's what's interesting about this. Let's do one more complicated one just for the sake of this, but this basically revolves around the same idea. This king is forcing this white king is forcing the black king to move over to both sides at the same time, and that's what's tricky about this. So this king basically is forcing. So the white king is basically forcing the black king to match it in terms of being able to provide defense for the g6 and h6 squares. And this king but basically the king is misdirecting the other king that way. This king goes here, this king goes here, this king goes here, and now basically white's splitting. So he's either pushing for this king to go to go defend this side, or he's pushing for the king to go defend on this side. But in this case, the white king has successfully moved forward, and the black king can't maintain successfully both on once. This black king can't maintain opposition because white is defending at the c6 square. if this pawn wasn't here, or if this pawn didn't have the ability to defend on this case, then king would go here and king would go here, and black would maintain the opposition. White would not be able to advance the position. But because this pawn maintains this this extra square, now after king to c4, black can't successfully maintain that opposition. So you can kind of see how this one builds on the other one. If king to b2, then black is able to move backwards between a6 and b6 here. But if you go the other direction, king to b1, then this king can't successfully defend there. So anyways, I think this is pretty interesting. I think this is an interesting situation. I guess what I would say there is it ends up being a good situation for white. White basically uses the ability to move. So king and pawn endgames are a great way to learn planning. I completely agree. I think that that's kind of the way to do this. Is basically, big picture. It's helpful. I think you can understand the basic points of what happened here. But realistically, this is the type of position that you would probably want to spend 45 minutes studying by yourself. I can basically skip straight to the answer. But midway through doing this, I was kind of like, we kind of need to actually have people, in order to actually learn this material. The goal here is to actually just basically, show this position and then, sit in silence for 45 minutes while people actually solve it. So anyways, here's the starting position. If anyone's interested, it's white to move. Just so you guys know, this is the starting position. And white to play can win this with using the technique that we saw, and black to play can draw this. So that was the goal. I think that's right. I mean, it's this position. If white can play and wins. I guess I don't know. I guess that's kind of my idea. Is basically, you could take this position and solve it for yourself. This is a classic world championship game, Lasker versus Reichhelm, and white can basically find ways to do this. But yeah, so I think this ends up being a reasonable way to play this. This shows the winning strategy, but in terms of actually fully understanding this, you can kind of see how this king forces the other king to be kind of outflanked here. So that's what's important. But to get a full grasp of that, I think you would have to sit here for quite a while actually thinking about it. Let's look at this from black's perspective. From black's perspective, this is a draw. So I'm just going to do a quick thing just so we can get back to the original position with black to move. Okay, sorry about that. But now we're in the main position with black to move. This is a draw. Is there any chess book in particular that I'd suggest for a 1,000 to 1,100 ELO player? Really good question. I guess the thing that I would say is there's Basic Chess Tactics, I think, was the classic one. I'd have to find it. Give me a second. But the one that I learned on was it was like a chess tactics for beginner book. Let me see if I can find it really quick, just since you've asked. But it's called the Chess Tactics Workbook. I'll show you. It's the one that I'm familiar with. The book that I was looking at was called the Chess Tactics Workbook. I think this this is probably pretty basic. This may be even too basic for 1,100 or 1,000 to 1,100. But I just know that this one, this was a book that I learned I learned from successfully a long time ago. So this Chess Tactics Workbook, this one is pretty good. But honestly, at this point, I feel like books are kind of not the way to go about it. I think, really, until you're about 2,000, the focus should be very heavily on chess tactics. So I would go, I would go basically, instead of that Chess Tactics Workbook, I would instead go for, one of the online tactics trainers. These chess tactics, I think, are fun to do. Just going on Puzzle Rush, Puzzle Battle, and doing that for many hours, I think that's really what will lead you forward in the most successful way, to be completely honest. Yeah, the chess tactics workbook is great, but at this point, I don't think that book is great. So don't get me wrong. I remember reading it and I remember working out of it. But that chess tactics workbook at this point is a little bit. I guess I would say it's a little bit old. It doesn't provide anything that that an online that an online trainer can't provide. Is what I'm saying. But yeah, I think that that's a good. I think that hopefully that's a good point. But yeah, I think it's basically kind of showing. It's a great book. So don't get me wrong. I remember having that book well, but it's not as strong, or it's not as flexible as the online trainers at this point. But where I would say you should be spending your time as a 1,000 to 1,100 level player is just chess tactics, chess puzzle training, that kind of thing. That if you just basically work hard and work off of those online puzzle trainers, you're really going to improve. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say, I would still stick with the puzzle. The puzzle elos are a little bit misleading, I would say. If you're looking at Lichess puzzle elos, they're kind of inflated. But really, it's more about as opposed to focusing on any particular elo. I promise you, if you stick with the tactics and continue to work on the tactics for an extended amount of time, it's gonna improve every aspect of your game. The percentage of games where I see, the percentage of games, and we see them all, basically, I get sent a lot of them, where the games are decided by 2 and 3 move tactics, out of relatively stable positions. That happens probably more than half the time under 2,000. Under 2,000, the games really end with the basically 2 move tactics. So that's I think it's really important. You really need to be spending time there. People will want to be more kind of purists about this, but if you follow 10, they're old documents. I don't know exactly which ones are which, but if you follow basically basic opening rules, things like develop your pieces quickly, control the center, and don't move the same piece twice. Like if you basically follow rules like that and understand them, and then you match that with very strong tactical training, you're going to be very solid. But I really would say, in terms of playing the game, it basically goes from playing a halfway coherent opening, which you don't really need opening prep to do. You just need to understand opening fundamentals, and then playing a very strong middle game based off of very good tactical understanding. That's enough to get you really, really far. Far enough that you can basically continue to improve on your own and be able to move on to more advanced techniques. But yeah. I would say puzzles. By the way, on the puzzle topic, 1 to 2 hours a day for a month on an online tactics trainer is probably about as good training as anyone rated 1,000 can do. I would just keep pushing in that direction, and it really is the most successful way to move forward efficiently. You're gonna have to circle back and learn more technical concepts later, but if you follow, really like you could probably reduce it to three topics. You could probably go to develop quickly, control the center, and basically don't over move pieces, and match that with strong tactical prep. I honestly think that could probably get you to I don't know, that could get you very far. That could probably get you to B or A class. If you do it to that degree, I really think that's the way to do it the most efficiently. But yeah, 1 to 2 hours of tactics a day basically people say the center and you don't really understand why. Great. Thank you very much for asking that question, Aiden. If anyone has questions like that, I'm super happy to answer them. But it's a really good point. Why is it worth controlling the center? Great question, Aiden. I can explain that. I can basically explain that. But if anyone else has questions like that, I'm always really happy to answer them. This is basically it's really a strong idea and a good one for kind of moving this question forward. Let's take a look at this. Here, e4, e5, knight to f3, knight c6, and I'm basically just I'm basically just going to come up with a kind of basic opening. But here, say bishop to c5, knight to c3, d6. And basically, the question is, why are you controlling the center? And I wanted to give kind of a practical situation. Like, if basically this knight here controls a lot of squares. So let's look at how many squares this controls and where they kind of are in the game. So basically, with this knight here, or actually, you know what's even better idea? I'll make it even more basic now that I think about it. Let's take a look at this. So let's look at two potential moves for this knight. This knight can either move to a3 or this knight can move to c3. C3 is the move that controls the center, and a3 is a move that controls this c4 square and this b5 square. So if you go move to a3, right, then there's only two moves that this knight can go to that are forwards, or there's only four squares really that this knight can go to on the edge of the board. Okay, so this knight can go to b5, c4, c2, and b1. So this knight to a3, facing this position. This shows a knight that is not centralized. So this knight is not centralized on a3. It only has four squares where it can go to, and as a result, it only has four different squares that it's really protecting and able to attack. This knight facing in those directions. But if this knight goes to here, then this knight has has a total of 8 squares that it can control. Okay, so basically, if this knight is looking here, it's looking at d5, e5, b5, and a4 as forward-looking moves. So having your pieces in the center, right, is important because it allows you control of more squares on the board. Having your knight on a3 is relatively inflexible, and it only offers like 2 advancing squares. But having your knight on c3 basically offers it 4 squares. The most extreme situation, again, is, you can do it without any of the other pieces on the board. You could basically put the knight on d5 and show the 8 squares that it can go to, and you can put the knight on a1 and show the 2 squares that it can go to. But basically the idea is, it's really about controlling more squares on the board at any given point in time. Having better center control is really just it's really a proxy for having pieces that are the most mobile. So if you put a bishop basically in the center, you have the most places to move to it. Same thing with a knight, having pieces in the center allows the largest control of the center. So the center is considered to be d4, e5, e4, e5, and then the extended center basically is this ring of pawns here. C3 to c6, f3 to f6. But basically putting pieces in this center and keeping them in the center offers them the opportunity to attack and control the most other squares, which is really what it comes down to. So if you don't centralize pieces, they end up on squares like a3, c4, and end up with 2 squares that they can go to. If you put them in the center, then they go basically to the squares where they basically go to the squares where they're the most mobile. So both sides are basically maneuvering to try to get their pieces into the squares where they have the most mobility, and that involves getting them to places like d5. What I was initially going to throw basically what I was initially going to show here, right, is d5 basically facing off against c7, b6, e7, f6. All of this idea, basically 4 points here. This knight is better there. It basically controls a lot of squares, and it controls a lot of squares that are important to black's position. So b6, c7, e7, and f6 are all sort of natural developing squares that this knight is preventing. Basically, if the knight is here, it's preventing the queen from going to either e7, f6, or defending, anything that, or basically defending along this line. So that's the idea. This knight is on d5, preventing things, and that's that's a good play for the white. So yeah, you need to basically create. This maximizes on mobility, like Lauren is saying. No, I think they're great. Honestly, I think it's really helpful. I appreciate largely I think that I think the explanations are right. I think having good understanding is really helpful. So yeah, you sharing your knowledge with people is always very helpful. I think that's a good idea. So yeah, no, that I agree with what you're saying. So controlling the center gives you more space and the ability to provide more mobility for your pieces once they're there. Why wouldn't Black just go bishop to e6 though? He can. I mean, the answer is he can go bishop to e6. But the thing about it is that it takes time to go to bishop to e6. So if White can basically seal this, can seal this strong center, this attack on f6, e7, c7, b6, that ends up being good for White. And this requirement basically to fix this, problem with knight to d5. White has to White can get developing moves like d3, and Black basically has to spend 2 moves to post the bishop as opposed to the knight on d5. Like, is this really, the question is this really worthwhile for Black to spend his time, trading, first moving his bishop to e6 and second moving his bishop to d5 to eliminate that? The answer is probably yes, but the point is that Black had to spend time to fix that problem. It takes 1 move for the knight to move to d5 from c3, and it takes 2 moves to get that bishop off the board. When the bishop trades for the knight, Black has sacrificed his bishop pair. White still has the bishop pair, and this bishop is still posted on d5 in a square with good mobility facing against a8 and facing against this f7 point, which is Black's weakest point on the board. Basically, in order to fix that problem that knight to d5 created, Black needed to play bishop to e6, bishop takes d5, and now, is this position much better for White? I don't know. I mean, or is this much better for Black? I don't know. Basically, having this bishop posted on d5 is really only marginally worse than that knight on d5. This bishop is facing towards 2 very kind of important points. So, anyways, that's what I was saying. That's what I think is important here. Kind of important to understand. With that, I think it was a great question, Aiden. I hope that was at least somewhat helpful. But yeah, all of those questions, please ask them. I'm always happy to explain to the best of my ability. But yeah, always ask. Look, I mean, I'm here. I'm very happy. My goal here is basically to make chess lessons completely free for everyone. I'm here an hour and a half a day. And my goal is really just to be the most. My goal is really just to be the most helpful that I can with these explanations. So I hope that provides some type of explanation of that. I think the uncentralized knight versus the more centralized knight is probably the most kind of basic explanation. But this knight facing forward and having 2 squares versus this knight facing forward and having 4 squares, I think that's pretty big. That's a demonstration of why the knight is better being centralized. So that's the idea. That's what I'm thinking. So, anyways, that's what basically what. But yeah, feel free to ask questions. But that's basically the answer to that one. All right, I want to do another thing. One of the things that I'm trying to figure out how to do is I want to make sure that we have as many kind of free resources as we can. One thing that we're doing is we're starting club tournaments, and I was just gonna show you this. This is the first one today, so I'm kind of curious to see how this goes. Aphelion was nice enough to set up basically 2 tournaments that I thought were great, based off of this chess club. I don't know if everyone's already on this chess club. I should probably link it from the Twitch. But this is the chess.com club that goes with this channel, we're doing a chess tournament right after this. So the tournament just opened. It's a Chess 960 tournament, and basically this Chess 960 here, right? This is a tournament that we're doing after this. Chess 960 is interesting. I'm not sure. I don't know. This is Chess 960 Blitz. Basically the registration for this just opened. So if we want to do this, we can take a look. I guess I'll register. I figure I'll get in on this tournament today. I'm not sure I'll always be able to play them, but this tournament starts right after the stream. And I think what we were gonna do going forward is we were gonna have a tournament after the stream every day. And I think that this, yeah, no worries, Laura. No, I mean, no pressure at all. I just thought we could do it. It might be fun. But yeah, but basically, it kind of as the chess club channel grows, we can basically do chess tournaments after that. So yeah, so if anyone's interested, today's kind of a trial run. We'll see if this we'll see how this works. But I was thinking that we could make this a daily thing. So yeah, Chess 960. I don't know. It was requested. We can make requests of kind of whatever everyone's interested in. But yeah, Chess 960 was requested, so we made it Chess 960. We'll see how it goes. Chess 960 is good for understanding concepts of quick development and center control and pawn structures. That's what it's really. That's what the good thing that I can say about Chess 960. It also takes people out of kind of established opening theory. But yeah, Chess 960 today is very interesting, and yeah, I'll play it today. Why not? But yeah, if anyone wants to play, we're gonna start matching this. We're gonna start matching this tournament to be after the morning streams, and we'll see how it goes. To be honest, this will be interesting. It's an experiment. We'll get to see things for the stream, and if anyone's interested in sending in any of their games from the stream or games from the tournament to the stream, feel free. Yeah, so there's that chess 960 on Friday. There's that 3-minute on Friday, and then there's the 10-5 going on tomorrow. But we're gonna keep matching these. My thinking was we could just match these to the lecture every day. I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play them because sometimes I'm very busy. But yeah, these tournaments will go along with the tournament. And I hope that as more people join the chess.com club, there will be bigger and bigger tournaments here. So anyways, that's an available thing that we're doing, and today's kind of the first one that's going on here. So yeah, it's an idea. I haven't, but that's interesting, Ruben. It's cool. People are really looking at different ways to play chess now. Chess 960 is really interesting, and engine analysis can make these types of things really really complicated, or basically interesting, and basically interesting and hopefully instructive. All right, cool. So let's take a look at the games now. So we have 3 games for this morning. First one was sent by Anch. Anch versus Houseline. Cool, awesome. So these guys are both. Anch is an admin on the lesson Discord, and yeah, this basically here. Yeah, so I guess I would say that this lesson here, this is Anch versus Houseline. These are both people from the Chess Study Group Discord, and Anch is also an admin on my server. So always people that we're very happy to see here on the stream. Okay, so cool. Anch plays the Scandinavian, and the Scandinavian with Queen to D8. So we know the classic. Queen to D8 idea, where basically this is what Carlsen played in kind of a classic game in 2013 or so. But basically, White gains this open file, trades off his D pawn for White's E pawn, and doesn't wind up too far behind in development. It's very interesting. It's an interesting Scandinavian defense. I think it's called the Mises Kotrick or whatever. I'm looking to chess.com for that labeling. But yeah. Anyways, Queen to D8, D4, Knight to F6, Knight to F3, and basically White's just going to kind of be developing in a standard way, and Black, unlike Queen to D6, Black is able to develop his pieces in a completely natural way here. He's just sort of a pawn, or he's just basically a tempo behind. Bishop to G4, Bishop E2, Bishop takes. This is, I'm not sure Bishop takes F3 is ideal. Let's look at Bishop takes F3 is not on the list of mainline opening moves. I think Bishop takes F3 sacrifices this bishop. This is a relatively, open game. So I think that the trading off the bishop for the knight here may not be too helpful for Black. I think in this situation, given that it's an open game, the relative value of bishops versus knights is higher. So I think things like C6 could be the most helpful. So yeah. Anyways, here, I'm just going to open my soda. But yeah, sorry, I just didn't wanted to, because otherwise that was going to be confusing. But yeah, this bishop to e2 as opposed to bishop takes f3. This as opposed to bishop takes f3, forward developing moves for black are good. Things like e6, which makes the black development better. Yeah, gotta wake up. I don't drink coffee, so I was thinking soda instead. But yeah, e6, bishop b4, or knight to c6. Here, basically, just sort of straightforward opening moves are the best. e6 is the most popular. Knight to d7 and knight to c6 are also on the list. I like e6 the best. I think getting this bishop out to b4 is a pretty intuitive way to do this. h3, and then probably like bishop to h5, castles, bishop to e7. Sure, but basically black is developing in a comfortable way, and yeah, interesting. That is actually really interesting. I guess I would say you could probably defer to that. If he's actually recommending bishop takes f3, that is, I mean, I wouldn't want to, if he's got specific reasoning for why bishop takes f3 is better, I guess, so in terms of authority here, I would give, so in order I would give the chess titles, and I would say, yeah, like, at the end of the day, a GM or IM is considerably better than IM. The only thing to consider with GMs and IMs is, their incentives. I can just tell you my incentive is to make chess lessons free and available to everyone. It's a very non-profit driven incentive. So I would say, if a GM or FM or a GM or IM recommends a particular line, odds are they're probably right. The only thing that I would do is basically, condition that on the concept of incentives. I'm telling you, I have no plan to make any money from chess ever. This is something that's fun for me to do, and I feel like chess lessons can be free. So I figured that this is the goal. So I can promise you that the things that what I'm saying are not tempered by none of the chess advice I ever give is tempered by any kind of financial incentive. That said, IMs and GMs, they basically are much better at chess than I am at the end of the day. This is not my job, and for GMs and IMs, it almost entirely is. So GMs and IMs, I think that if they give you a good reason for playing a move like bishop takes f3, they're probably right. They are probably right. The only thing that I would do is condition that on incentives. So yeah, this bishop takes f3 is an interesting move. Let's look at it. So on bishop takes f3, the eval shifts by about half a point against you. So this bishop takes f3, and white has ideas like bishop takes f3, c6, and basically black is fine here. Black is fine. There's no real problem. The issue is you've traded off your bishop pair. So I would use opening book theory and opening book theory here, e6 and c6, to provide guidance, and the engine eval to provide guidance. But if there's a very specific reason to if there's a very specific reason to be playing things like bishop takes f3, maybe there is an IM or GM reason that I just don't know. That's also very much a possibility. If an IM or GM is recommending it, I don't know. I would give deferral to that advice over mine. The only thing that I would say is, in terms of hierarchy, I would put me on the lowest level on the list in terms of authority. I would say I'm barely good enough. At the same, it depends on how pure you're gonna be. I don't think anyone under 2200 should be giving lessons, to be honest. But that's kind of. I would say I'm barely good enough in authority to give chess lessons. Above me comes IM or GM, IM or GM level coaches, and then above that, I would give the computer's evaluation as a mile above everybody else. So if you're doing something that's an anti-computer move, that also is kind of a red flag for me. Basically, bishop takes f3. Bishop takes f3, and white loses about half a pawn relative to his relative to the previous eval. Yeah, I have a FIDE rating, but it's not particularly high. The thing about it is I'm a FIDE titled player. I actually have a FIDE title. It's AGM. So yeah, so if anyone's interested, this is the FIDE titling system. The FIDE titling system, has changed a bit. But one thing that I would say is, I can go into this too. Yeah, I'm the AGM. Look, I'm a FIDE titled master. I'm not a FIDE master. That's something that has a specific definition. But I am an arena grandmaster here. So, as long as FIDE offers these titles, I think that this is a system that, it may not be available forever, but the title's given for life. So, I strongly recommend getting yourself a FIDE title. And an ACM Aphelion, yeah, ACM Aphelion is a legitimate FIDE master. I mean, he's a FIDE master. FIDE gave him a master title. So Aphelion is a master as determined by FIDE. If other people are interested, you can get these titles online. I think they're great. I have my AGM. This is an official title recognition by a world governing chess body, by the world governing chess body. It's given for life, and yeah, that's my FIDE title. My over the board FIDE rating is not that high. I play very infrequently. I probably, if I get one tournament a year, I'm happy, and it's somewhere between 2,000 and 2,100, somewhere on the 2,100 side, I think. But I don't play actively. But I am a FIDE AGM. Yeah. So, anyways, if anyone's interested, check out your FIDE titles. Yeah, absolutely. Basically ask Aphelion. Aphelion's gone through the I mean, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say ask Aphelion. I don't know how much he wants to, but you can ask me. And basically what I would say is you can go on the FIDE Arena. It's 25 euros a year. And then the title additionally costs somewhere between 5 and 50 euros a year, depending on how high a level title it is. But basically, Aphelion has spent 30 euros, to my understanding, on his FIDE title, and he is now a FIDE titled master. Yeah, you have to win. That's the thing. I mean, you have to play at the level that determined by FIDE. It's not a 0 level, but basically 30 euros total for a membership and the ACM title. Is the minimum title cost. In the United States, that's much less than most FIDE tournaments actually cost. But this titling system is yeah, no, it is. I mean, that's the thing. It is a real, not everyone can get it. It is a screening criteria. I think many people can get it. And Aphelion is an official FIDE master. If anyone asks him, he's a master as determined by FIDE. Yeah, so yeah, I think it gives people opportunity to shoot for, but yeah, I'm big into the FIDE titling system, or this new expansion of the FIDE titling system. So if anyone's interested in this, they can get the FIDE Online Arena, and yeah, get yourself an official title as determined by the world governing chess body. I am an Arena Grandmaster. That's my FIDE title, and yeah. Feel free to go get that. But FIDE master title is given by the FIDE, the World Governing Chess Federation. Anyways, let's look at this. So anyways, we're talking about how if there's a good reason to play bishop takes f3, which appears by the engine to be a not that great move, then feel free to. If it has good justification behind it, then I trust that high level justification. E6, b3, knight d7, bishop to b2. All of this I think is good. I think developing these bishops, this makes sense. Black's got a solid position and white's got a solid position. Here we're just sort of in the opening, going into kind of a reasonable middle game. Ideas for black here. White has better center control as given by this d4. Yeah, you can ask me. I don't know. Aphelion may not be the. Feel free to ask me how to get a FIDE title. It's not complicated. Just go on FIDE. The FIDE Arena, and that's how you can get a real-world FIDE title online for 30 euros. Yeah, you have to play official FIDE rated, but yeah, I strongly recommend get yourself a FIDE title. We don't know how. I don't know, these things may change, but if you want to become a FIDE master, here's a good opportunity. Aphelion is a FIDE master, has a FIDE master title, and will have one for life. So he's the first one. that's gotten one from the stream. But if you get one too, go get your FIDE Master title and tell me about it. Because yeah. So anyways, that's something. But how you get your FIDE title online? Okay. Castles, knight to e4, knight takes, bishop takes, and basically here, white is, white has an edge. I think f5 is an error. F5 creates a liability with e6, so I think that I would say, f5 is probably not the move. I understand your interest in basically blocking off this threat of the centralized bishop on f7. But f5 creates a lasting vulnerability. So with f5, this e6 pawn is hanging. Yeah. So this f5 leaves the e6 pawn hanging, and that's kind of basically is a sort of a problem for black. So f5 and this bishop goes, is forced to move, but leaves black with kind of a lasting disadvantage here. F4, c4. c5, pawn takes, knight takes, and white has a pretty serious advantage. So I think that there was, I think in terms of improving this, I don't know. It seems like white's attack got pretty successful pretty quickly, and this e6 pawn became kind of a liability. Yeah, so bishop to d3 with this pawn hanging on e6. F4 leaves white with a basically leaves white with an aggressive attack on h7, aggressive attack from b2 on g7. So c4, c5, pawn takes, knight takes. Hooks is by FIDE. Yep. So knight to c5, queen to g4, g6, bishop to c2, and now these bishops are facing kind of in towards white's king side, or sorry, black's king side. But I think there was a way to head this off. I think these bishops did get very powerful here, but I think that f5 is a move that has immediate issues with e6, but it also does create issues with yeah, you're a master now. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So basically f5 pressuring the bishop. Instead, maybe queen to g5, knight to f6, knight to d5. This could be a better way for black to play it. But yeah, I think that ends up being kind of a good opportunity for black. Or a good opportunity for white. It's funny that f4 is the move here that's really penalized. Yeah. Yeah, f4, c4, c5, pawn takes, knight takes. Queen to g4, and basically white's up by about 4 pawns here. I think f5 paired with f4. This was enough to basically swing the evaluation of this game. So f5, f4 is the way to play this. So f5, f4, yeah. Knight to f6, knight to d5, probably better for black. But leading into this situation, this is sort of what cost black this game. So interesting. Basically by this point, white's getting very aggressive attacking going. I don't know if it ever gets more equal. I guess it did. Interesting. So what happened? Did a piece get hung? Yeah, so black comes back. Basically, black has this opportunity of rook to b8, queen to a3, rook takes b2, and now this threat, rook to b2, is basically pretty this wins a piece. So white was winning here by a good amount, but then makes a tactical error. Queen takes b7, and black plays rook to b8, skewering this queen to b2. Yeah, with rook to b8 facing off against b2, rook takes b2, queen to c1, king to g7, queen to g8, and king to h6. Basically, this this ends up being in a relatively equal endgame with the bishops facing off against each other. So yeah, anyways, this ends up good for black. And black checkmates on f2. So I guess what I would say here is this is a this ends up being good for black. So so knight to d7 beats bishop to b2, bishop d6. But basically white is good here. Castles, knight to d4, knight takes, bishop takes, and yeah. So I guess what I would say is there are some errors here. So e4, d5, queen takes, queen to c3, and overall here, the real so the thing that I would say is if there's a good reasoning. So in looking at this game, bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3. And black has traded off his bishop for white's knight. Is this worth it? The engine says it's not good, but if there's a very high level human that gives a good explanation for why it's good, that's fine to defer to. This is fine, but f5 f4 was not the correct plan. Here you just want a forward development. If you really want to block bishop threats on h7. Play knight to f6 or play g6, but f4, f5, f4 left white with open strong diagonals here. Now this rook is facing off against e6. That's important. So yeah, knight to f4, c4, c5, pawn takes c5, knight takes c5, and now white's up by about 4 pawns. And yeah, g6, bishop to f2. Yeah, white's. I guess I would say white's up by about white's up by about 6 points here. So that was really the idea to improve on from this game. Knight to f6 is a straightforward developing move. This knight is more powerful on f6 than it is on d7. Black can also play knight to b6, and but developing your knight to either f6, which makes a lot of sense. Or b6 is important. b6 doesn't really make that much sense. So knight to f6 here threatens the knight and threatens to move the pawn to the center. So f5 weakens e6, and then f4 basically opens up these full diagonals for white. So I think that's the improvement for black in this game. And then white, has played well to this point. Strong is up kind of a piece. And then just makes kind of a 2-move tactical error. So these kind of tactical problems are very important to understand. Black plays rook to b8 and skewers the queen and bishop. White should not play. White should not play queen takes b7 with that. With that ability in mind. So yeah. So that attack sort of gets neutralized. Rook plays to b8, queen goes to a6, rook takes a6, rook takes b2, and queen to d8 should be played here. Cool. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Feel free. Send the link or whatever. And queen takes f2. Yeah, I think this ends up being good for black, and this play for black equalizes. So I think white needed to be more cautious here. White had a lot of opportunities, a lot of open files on the king, and here I don't know. I guess c6 provided an opportunity for white to kind of move forward here. But yeah, c6 and then rook takes d7, pawn takes d7, something like that. But now white is good and facing off against king h8 with these open files. So that's big. Interesting situation, and black ends up capitalizing. So yeah, from here I think black makes a big error in queen to f3. Queen to f3 and queen takes c5. This leads to a pretty good situation for black. Basically this fork of the f2 square and the c4 bishop. So yeah, I guess I would say this. In terms of improvements in this game for black, I'm not a huge fan of bishop takes f3, but if there's an explanation for it, then cool. This f5 leaves e6 vulnerable, and f4 leaves this file open for white. Black had a great recovery from a tactical perspective, but that's the biggest focus of revision for this game. Rook to b8, forcing the queen to move, and then rook takes b7, and then queen takes f2. That is it. So let's take a look at the next one. This is a TK's game. And actually, I'll reorder them. I'll do TK's game next. I'm gonna do this one first. This is someone's game. Let's see. Okay, so this is someone's game playing white, and someone faces basically the Sicilian with knight to c6. D4, knight takes, east d6, knight c3, g6. Okay, so now we're in a dragon. This is pretty well explored territory. I guess I would say the matching of d6 and g6 is not extremely common, but not nearly as common as d6, e6 Finnegan variation. So like e6 or Taimanov variation. But yeah, g6 here, and basically, we're still in pretty well-established theory. This is a dragon-type position. Bishop g7, f3, knight to f6, bishop to b5, bishop to d7, and here basically, white can do things like castle. White can play queen to d2, and I guess here this is the Sicilian dragon. In this game, white's going to have aggressive attack on the king side, and black is going to try to exploit this open file to move his rook on the c file. Bishop takes, knight takes, castles queen side, castles king side, g4, h4, and and I basically think white will be fine here. I think that I don't understand why it's calling h4 a mistake. I guess it's pushing for this move. This move is interesting. This move really weakens d6. So queen to b6. I think big picture white is aiming for attacks on the king side. But I think with queen to b6 here, the best tactical response to this is actually e5 and play in the center. With e5, the pawn, pawn takes e5, then you can play g5 and win a piece. So g5 threatens this knight and threatens to win the bishop on d7. So this is just an opportunity from what happened in the game. After queen to b6, e5, pawn takes e5, g5. And this knight on f6 has to move, and then white can play queen takes d7. So, anyways, that's important. Just so we're just since I have a minute here, I was thinking, you guys, let's just take a look at this 960 tournament so far. The 960 tournament is up to 6 players. I just wanted to see, what's going on here. This 960 tournament, this starts in about 25 minutes at 9:45. I was gonna pair these. I was gonna basically pair these matches against I was basically gonna pair these games or these tournaments with the end of the streams in the morning. This is an interesting try. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Chess 960 starting in 25 minutes. I think I'm probably gonna play today, but maybe I won't. I don't know. Depending on how many people we get. We'll take a look. But this is the Chess 960 tournament. 6 players so far. If anyone's interested, feel free to join. Okay. So h4 is an error. H4 runs into rook fb8, and basically pressure's getting placed from rook fb8 onto b2. Rook fb8, b3, queen to b4, h5, c5, pawn takes, bishop there, bishop to h8. And black is, basically black has white pretty well, exposed on the queen side. G5, knight to e8, queen to d5, queen or d6 or e6, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that white is solid, or black is solid. White doesn't really have the ability to advance on this king side here. Queen takes, pawn takes, pawn takes. Yeah, black is not particularly. I guess I would say that black is not particularly challenged. There's not really much that white can do here. This quick c5, rook to c4, pawn takes, bishop takes, knight takes. And here, black ends up a piece. So, yeah, this is an interesting way that black can kind of neutralize the, or basically consolidate his position to be a piece up. Anyways, e4, c5, knight f3, d4, knight takes d4, d6, knight to c3, g6, bishop to e3, bishop to g7, and white's up. So f3, queen to d2, a6, bishop takes, pawn takes, and yeah, it's up to white kind of how to advance this. We saw what happened, didn't really work out too well. I think castling queenside may be overly ambitious with the rook on the open b file. I think basically here, if white castles queenside, the rook on b8 is going to be facing towards b2, and that could be an issue. Instead, maybe castling kingside could be good. Knight to a4 could be a way to play this, but castling kingside and white should be comfortable here. Castling queenside and black's going to have sustained attacks. So I think everything was fine in this game, but I would really think about castling queenside and the opportunities that this is going to allow black for attack. Maybe b3, maybe b3 knight a4, or b3 rook to d1 knight a4. Definitely shutting down the black attack on this queenside is going to be important. Okay, castling queenside, and then black's going to be able to play rook to b8. So castles here, g4, c5, knight to e2, and then h4, h5 are going to be white's best chances, but here there's actually the tactical improvement e5, which puts pressure on the d6 pawn and the f6 knight. So in terms of things that to look at for this game, I would say the first is castling queenside. Castling queenside is going to offer black sustained attacking opportunities. Even though you're supposed to attack on the king side here, I still might castle, or even though you're supposed to attack on the king side, I still might castle king side. But castling queenside, g4, knight d2, h4, and basically black's going to be exerting pressure. A rook to b8 onto b2, and white is, I guess I would say white is fine. Knight to b4, h4, c4. White's got opportunities, but nothing really. Pawn takes, bishop to h6, bishop to h8. This center, this position actually holds together much better for black than for white. So I think the real shift in this game comes from castling queenside. No, so that's the interesting thing, Ahmet, is that it is often better to attack on, or it is often better to castle on the queen side. But I think in this particular case, the open rook file, the open knight file for the rook to be attacking on b2, this is going to cause some problems for black. In general, you do want to castle queenside if you can, but it's not necessary. You can still castle kingside and have a strong attack. The most important idea, Ahmet, is to castle kingside and instead play, instead basically play on the king side here. So h4, h5 are definitely the moves to play, and here there are tactical reasons to not play castles queenside. So the important thing is the attack. The important thing is not which side you castle on. But very good question, Ahmet. But this would be a reason, or this would be a case in which you're better off castling kingside and still attacking on the king side, but castling kingside and attacking on the king side. It's just that this tactical opportunity for black is too strong on that knight file. Okay, castles queenside, castles kingside, g4, c5, knight to e2, and then h4, h5. B3, queen to b4, h5. I guess I think that this opportunity for white is pretty good. And yeah, that's what I would go with. Pawn takes g6, pawn takes g6, bishop to h6, bishop to h8. This center, basically this kingside or queenside castling exposed white to a lot of attacks. And I think that's a move worthy of kind of revision here. Unfortunately, this kingside attack doesn't go anywhere for white, so basically black is able to secure kind of a winning opportunity, winning game here. So yeah, I think in terms of improving this game, Mehmet, the thing that I would look at is first, I think this opening was fine. I think the real issue came up with castling queenside. This is just gonna, this is just basically gonna cause you a lot of trouble dealing with this rook on the b8 file. Okay, castles kingside, g4, c5, knight to e2, queen to b6, and yeah, okay. I think basically white can make the most of this. The tactical opportunity here is e5. On e5, knight e8 is a continuation. If d takes e5, then g5. But if knight to e8, then knight to d5 forks this queen and basically forces black to move back quickly in order to defend this e7 pawn. On b7, knight takes e7, and white is up a pawn. This is overall good for white, forces the king over to h8, and things basically end up good for white in this situation. So knight takes e7, and things are good. So yeah, knight to c3, bishop to e3, f3, and but yeah, looking at bishop takes c6, this ends up being good, and g4, h4, and basically white's pushing, with b3 and knight to a4. So the main moves here, the main kind of decisive concepts here, castling queenside for white put the king into harm's way for too long. Just castling kingside was better. If castling kingside, then you can move the pieces over towards, you can move the pieces over towards the queen side, b3, b4, h5, and basically white is, white can push on this, but white can basically play e5, and have that opportunity to win the piece, and h5. Now white is doing okay. Bishop to h6 is a mistake, I guess. I think the g5 pushes this knight into uncomfortable positions better. Bishop to h6 didn't really do much. Black has the bishop to h8 resource. This would be an extreme example of the case where bishop to h8 is actually the best move. That doesn't happen often, and it usually only happens when this rook has an open file and the queen is aligned. Basically this queen-bishop battery, I've never been convinced is super important for white. But yeah, this rook facing in towards h8 and this queen facing in towards h6, this combination I think is not, much in the way of, it's only very specific tactical situations where this bishop to h6 threat is worth the time spent. Okay, so g5. G5 earlier forces this knight to somewhere awkward, either knight to e8 or knight to h5. If either one, this bishop can counter with bishop to d4 and basically force the bishop from coming in. So in terms of improvements for white, so far, queenside castling, takeaway number 1. E5 is a tactical opportunity here. E5 number 2. Interesting. Yeah, bishop to d5. Interesting. Yeah, no, I see the pattern, but I don't think you ever have any way of making that happen. I don't think there's really not really much there. Yeah, so g5 threatening the knight on f6 is the play here. So this is an improvement over bishop to h6. Good. Yeah, thanks for asking. Thanks for being here. I don't know if this is something that interests you, but we have this weekly Chess 960 tournament. This will be interesting. For anyone who wants to join, this is an arena tournament starting after the stream. Chess 960. I guess I'll play. We'll see how it goes, and this is just the try. We have one on Friday. We have one tomorrow, and I'm curious to see what happens in this tournament. I guess if I'll play it, I might as well stream it, right? That makes sense. So yeah, we can play this tournament, and that should be interesting. Cool. So I'll stream it. If anyone wants to play, it'll be on the stream, and we'll do this. Yeah. So here this tournament is this link. You have to be a member of the club. I think most people are members of the club at this point. But yeah, this is a Chess 960 arena. And we'll see how many people we can get. This is just sort of an experiment, but yeah, if anyone wants to get in, definitely go for it. Okay, so f takes g6. Now white is up by about 0.6. Bishop h6, g5. g5 first was the improving move for white. With that, you can go for queen to d5. But the idea of getting that that double diagonal mate, queen to d5 into e8 into g8. I don't really think there's much there for white. I think there's just always going to be a tactical response like e6 there. I understand wanting to get that mate, but just looking at kind of what's tactically available to you is kind of the most important thing. All right, we're up to 6 players. We're up to 7 players on this tournament. Kind of curious to see how much we can get. It starts in 15 minutes. I'll stream my games. Chess 960 was an interesting recommendation. If anyone else has recommendations for tournaments that we should set up for this, please let me know and we'll do them. But yeah, thanks you for sending the game, Met. The ideas here in terms of improving this game, I think castling queenside was the biggest positional mistake. All of these, castling queenside is good in the Sicilian in general, but if this B file is open and this knight file is difficult to defend, then castling queenside is a move that you need to play very cautiously. Is my main idea. Basically this positionally is going to give black a continued attack on the queen side, and that could be challenging. Queen to b6, h4, rook to b8, b3, queen to b4, and white's got an advantage with the tactical e5 thrown in, and then a g5 tactic here that is also a tactical improvement. But a lot of this could have been sides. So bishop h6 was not the correct idea here. g5 was the correct idea. But the real thing that I think becomes a lasting liability for white from a positional perspective is there's a tactical. Yeah, I think in general that's right. I think that's if that's your takeaway from this game, Matt, I'm pretty comfortable with that. I think that is a good general policy. If there's a knight on b3 and if white has very good blockading structures, then maybe. But I would definitely say pay attention to castling queenside in Sicilian if there is an opportunity to attack on the b2 file. That's what I'm saying. That's my main concept here. All right. So for anyone who wants to play, we have that chess 960. But yeah, I think that's broadly right, Matt. So if that's the takeaway, I'm comfortable with that being the takeaway. We're doing this chess 960 tournament. I guess I'll stream it. I don't know if I'll play all of it, to be honest. I think these are kind of less fun if I win. Not saying I'm gonna win, but saying that this might be tough for basically this could be I don't know. It could be a tough tournament. It's interesting. But yeah, we're gonna play this. We're gonna try this, and we'll do the next one tomorrow. Cool. Next one will be standard, rapid, and not 960. We're doing 960 because it was recommended. If anyone else has recommendations, feel free to send them. Okay, cool. With that sent, let's take a look. The next game. The next game was TK's game. We're up to 6. And yeah, let's look at this. So this is a TK playing another master as white. TK faces off against c5 and d6, knight to f6, knight to c3, a6, bishop to e2. E5, knight f3, bishop to e7, bishop to e3, castles, h3. And basically here, what I would say is that this ends up being an idea that that white has. Basically pressure on d6 I think is pretty solid. But yeah, e4, c5, knight to f3, d6, d4, knight takes. We're in a kind of mainline Sicilian Najdorf position, a Najdorf d6 and knight to f6 structure. Nothing too exciting. a6. Opposensky variation, didn't know the name of that. But yeah, bishop to e2, e5, knight to f3, bishop to e7. And then bishop to e3 is the real kind of sidestepping move here. I think bishop to g5 is probably better. Bishop to c4 is also actually playable here. You know, I always go on that tangent about how the bishop facing on c4 is bad against an unplayed, is bad in the Sicilian. But if e5's been played in the Sicilian, then bishop to c4 is no longer a weak diagonal. So yeah, bishop to e3, castles. Yeah, white can play things like h3, and basically push hard on the king side here. Things like g4, g5, h4, I think are the best way for white to basically move on this. a3, h6, but I think g4 is the thing to do. G4, g5, and pressure on the black king side. This is a kind of, I guess I would say this is a kind of a very standard Sicilian game. This is the type of situation, by the way, in which white can comfortably castle queenside. White can castle queenside, and white can play g4 and g5. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. Castle queenside, rook to c8, king to b1, b5, g4, and then g5 coming to break open this king side. Knight's gonna have opportunities with knight to c4, knight to d5, bishop takes, pawn takes, knight to c4, bishop takes, pawn takes, and then g5 here I think is the move. Yeah, so pushing hard on the king side is better. Interesting. So castling kingside was not that good immediately. I'm sort of wondering what white is proposing to do on the king side, if not castle queenside and get the rook into g1. Let's look at this engine line. This is g4. Black has like ideas of like I don't know, d5, b5, sure, g5, pawn takes, knight takes. But basically, what's interesting about this is that so I was looking at castle. I would advocate castling here, but what the engine finds is that actually leaving this uncastled, white still has sufficient pieces to launch a successful kingside attack. That's actually pretty interesting to me. I wouldn't necessarily expect that. White having enough pieces to attack without the queenside rook. But overall, interesting idea. Knight to g5 pushing on e6, knight to g5 pushing on h7. Interesting outcome. Okay, so yeah, so the engine doesn't like castling queenside here either. Again, this is castling queenside in the Sicilian. So, if anything from the two games today, in this position, I would think that castling queenside was probably fine. I guess rook to c8 paired with b5 and b4 expansion probably is sort of dangerous. Knight to a5. I guess black pieces are sort of oriented towards the queenside. But the lessons, I guess, from the game today is to be kind of more reluctant to play, castling queenside recklessly in the Sicilian. We're seeing two games today where it was very costly for white to castle queenside in the Sicilian. Bishop takes, pawn takes. Interesting. Although this one, especially the second one, is more surprising to me. But the engine recommends attacking on the king side as white, leaving the king uncastled and not starting any king side and not moving the king over to the king side. But I do agree. At this point, white's king safety is not too fantastic. c3, queen to d5, knight d2. All of this looks fine. Queen takes, pawn takes. Sure. I think basically white is yeah. I mean, maybe bishop to g5, bishop takes g5, rook takes g5. I think that could be it. Also pressure ideas like c4, c5, those could be good. But now it's like an even rook and pawn endgame. Interesting way that this turned out. Actually, good play by white to neutralize all this. I think black kind of mismanaged this attack, to be honest. At this point, black's showing an eval advantage of almost 3. And here, this kingside looks really compromised. So, anyways, rook to b7, knight to d5, rook to b8. I think this puts a lot of pressure on white. So, anyways, really interesting. After rook hg1, rook fb8 is going to double rooks on the b file, and yeah, very interesting. Very interesting game, and yeah. Cool. All right, we're up to 9 players in the Chess 960 tournament. This is starting in 5 minutes. I'm gonna stream it. We'll see. This will be the first one that we do, And yeah, I don't know if I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I may not play all of it. Not sure. Anyways, it'll be fun. We'll stream it, and there's 10 players. Great. So yeah, thank you very much for joining Unconquered. Thanks very much for joining. This will be really cool. We'll see how it goes, and yeah. Cool. Arenas are great. I like how an arena, really gives chances to everybody. So anyways, this king to h7, queen to c2, rook to g8. This white actually did a great job neutralizing that pretty dangerous queenside attack to get his king safety better again. In this rook and pawn endgame, black looks a little bit better. Black is a pawn up. I think I think this extra pawn for black is going to be good. This king takes h6 was important. White I think should be pretty comfortable here. Or black should be pretty comfortable here. White's threats aren't really going anywhere, and black's going to be able to attack on using the g file. Rook h2, king e1 is a blunder, allowing g3. Now rook gets this b2. So I think here, honestly, black is in a good position. But I think that there are vulnerabilities on white's side. I think white can't be attacking pieces here. White can't really play this for a win. I think white has to sort of, aim for a draw here and be very careful with the advancement of pieces and the entry of black's rook into the position. Let's look at what the engine does, but I'm guessing that it's probably going to steer the king towards g2. But yeah. Yeah, I think if white gets the king over to g2 quicker, then he's in much better position. So let's look. Rook to a4 threatens that pawn. King to f5. Rook takes g4. All right. I guess just the immediate waste of tempo. I guess the tempo is really important here. The rook moving to c4 as opposed to a4 and threatening the pawn loses white a tempo. So yeah. Interesting. Cool. So yeah, black basically converts, but I think that the rook to c4 was an inefficient move. I think rook to a4 here was the most solid improvement. Rook to a4 facing off against a6, and yeah, interesting. All right, we're up to 11 players. I think let's wrap this up. Okay, so in terms of takeaways for this game for white, I think things were reasonable. I learned a little bit from this game, to be honest. This game was kind of educational for me. I got to see kind of, a situation in the Sicilian in which castling queenside was basically an error. I wouldn't have expected it either, and I definitely wouldn't have expected what the engine is proposing, g4 and g5, without castling the king. I'm surprised that that's enough pieces attacking the black king side to make that work. Yeah, thanks Unconquered Foe. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for joining the stream, and thank you very much for participating. Yeah, we're gonna do so this was kind of the biggest positional takeaway, same as the last one. Castling queenside in the Sicilian can be dangerous. I think white played very well tactically to try to get this back to equality, and then white played one or two tempo losing moves in the endgame, which were very costly. A4, basically restricting this rook to the defense of this pawn, was the idea. So this quick attack by the rook on a4 was what equalized for white. With this rook attacking this pawn and this pawn needing to be there for the defense of this, potentially passed, connected pass pawn for white on a3. This rook to a4 threatening on a6, so that ends up being pretty good for white. Yeah, so anyways, that ended up being good. That ended up being a fair play, and yeah. Cool. So the improvements there, castling queenside exposed white to unnecessary risk, and then second, there were tempo gaining moves and ways of pinning down this rook to defensive squares that were an important improvement in the rook and pawn endgame. Anyways, let's wrap up the stream. Thank you all very much for playing, and we're getting started. All right, so this is a tournament, a 12 player arena. Starts in 10 seconds and ready to go. This is the first one. Thank you all very much for playing, and we're going to do this as a post-stream. Yeah, good luck, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the stream, and thank you very much for playing. We're taking a look at this. Okay, so really interesting stuff. Okay, so I don't know chess 960 that well, so that's the first thing. I think Raymond plays the correct idea. Raymond basically goes for this early d4 and advancement in the center, and I think I should probably do that too, right? Like I think that looking at this position is kind of important. I guess what I would say is that oh crap! Okay, it wasn't supposed to abandon like that. My bad. That's an error. And then it won't repair us? Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, cool. So I guess I give Raymond 2 free points. It doesn't let you look over the... that's actually really interesting. It doesn't look over the position first. You have to start moving quickly. All right. That's something I learned about chess 960. That's cool. Interesting. So yeah, so if anyone wants to join the chess 960 tournament, definitely feel free. The chess 960 tournament is going on right now. There's 14 players. Great. That's great turnout. Good luck to everyone. And yeah, anyone who still wants to get in on this, feel free. This is a good tournament. I'll send the link again, just in case. But yeah, chess 960 tournament. I managed to accidentally forfeit myself in the first round. That's really funny, actually. But yeah, 14 players, and there's the link to the tournament if anyone else wants to join. They should just repair me and Raymond. That's funny. All right, well. Let's observe somebody's game. These are interesting. Let's go back to the starting position for this game. I think this was, I think starting position, we can do like a starting position analysis. I think that would be kind of cool to look at. Let's go back to the beginning here. So, by the way, I just to clarify what happened, I accidentally forfeited myself. It was pretty funny. I was like looking over this, game. But let's look at this opening position. So what's going on in this position? I think that white can do things like play e4, and white can play d4, and white can play b3 and c4. Center control is probably going to be the most important thing in this game. It's basically quick development and getting pieces, and having a strong pawn structure are kind of the most important things in Fischer, or basically chess 960. Okay, cool. All right, they stopped my analysis. But basically, most of the game is about pawn structure. So the fundamental opening concepts, basically having a strong opening position, and playing things like b3, c4, knight to f3, knight to g3. That's the important part. This c4 challenges the center immediately. I think that's an idea. But overall, these positions are interesting. I guess it's about coming up with an opening strategy first. G3 is probably a bad move. I don't think I should have played G3. G3 I think was an error for me, right? Because it opened up my rook file to his open bishop file. I'm so used to playing this pawn structure as white that I didn't really think about this. I think this was an error for white. So I think G3 was not correct there. That move is really only strong if you're fianchettoing the bishop. Otherwise, this just sort of weakens my king side. All right, I'll get pieces developed quickly since I think that's probably the best idea. So far, we're playing we're playing basically a queen's pawn pawn structure. Knight to e3. I'm also gonna have to remember how to castle on this interface. Fischer random castling is always weird. If anyone wants to see instructively what Fischer random castling looks like, I'm gonna castle kingside here. And I think what you do is play king to g1. Hey, thank you very much for the follow-up, Pele. Thanks for joining the stream. But yeah, castling kingside here, I think this will work. Yeah. No, no, no. I don't. Uh, I, I'm trying to figure out how to castle here. Let's learn how to do this. So this is another game. Again, this tournament I'm just gonna call a learning experience. But this put the king on the rook. Ah, cool. All right, awesome. X Paradox. Uh, X Paradox showed me how to castle kingside here. If you want to castle kingside, you move the king onto the rook. I didn't know that's what you did. All right, thanks. That's actually super helpful for X Paradox to explain. I did not know how to do that. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. Okay, cool. All right, interesting. So yeah, so I guess I'm just gonna go for things that kind of uh, one thing that's kind of crazy. The positions are all a mess. Chess 960 is really interesting, but I think it has some value from a positional learning perspective. It's less focused on like what the opening moves are and more focused on how you can kind of, control the main ideas are the same. Like control the center, maintain a good pawn structure. I guess be flexible and develop quickly are kind of the principles that I'm most familiar with. It also brings into the value of like 2 and 3 move tactics. Those come up a lot, but it is pretty interesting. So yeah, so moving this knight to e5. If anyone is new and anyone wants to join the tournament, the link to the tournament I can send. It's here. Yeah, all of these positions are crazy. I'm thinking pawn. I don't know. The bishops start off in fianchetto positions often. That's unusual. I gotta watch out for the bishop on e2. These are really interesting positions. I don't know. Interesting points. Maybe queen to d3. I don't think I can do much more on the queen side here. I don't think my strat. I think I should probably just trade down if I can. Yeah, that's cool. It's cool that it gets to an endgame strategy. These are very interesting games. I mean, they really sort of force you to think about like strong positions, and the time control is long enough that you actually can think about these. It's been a long time since I played Chess 960, so yeah. Overall, this is interesting, but I think it's mostly focused on pawn structure and healthy piece placement. And tactics as well. Tactics are also important. But yeah, this is sort of starting. This looks like is sort of starting to look like an actual chess game. It took 25 moves, but now I can sort of see it. How's the tournament going? Pravilo is number one. Pravilo with a 2-game winning streak. It's number one in the tournament. Uh, Very interesting. I'm also really curious. I'm just really curious. This is all this is a cool thing for someone to recommend actually. Um, oh, that's too bad, Unconquered Foe. Um, Sorry about that, Alexandre. But yeah, this is really interesting though. I'm 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 impressed. Yeah. So now we're actually this is all right. This is sort of chess again. Um, but Arena and Aphelion 2-0 as well. All right. Uh, awesome. And we have 15 players. This is so interesting. All right. All right, good game, X Paradox. Thank you very much for playing, and thanks everyone so much for being here and playing this tournament. This will be really interesting. I'm just very curious to see how this turns out. And then, just so we all know, we're doing a game in 10, a game in 10 with 5-second increments tomorrow after the stream. And I think we're just gonna make this a daily tournament if people are interested. I'm very curious to see. It's great to have a good number of players here. And thanks all very much for playing. But yeah, I wanted to make this a daily thing after the tournament, and we can. I don't know if I'll always be able to play it, but this is fun for sure. It's great to have people here. All right, 3 people with 5. Hey, there's Jen. Want to join the tournament, Jen? We're playing a post lecture tournament. Okay, no worries. Thank you for being here, anyways, Jen. Thank you. Let's see. Anyone up to 7 points yet? Let's see. Queen to a4. This is a complicated position. Let's see. What? Let's look at this. Let's look at this queen side here. I'm kind of nervous about this position. Wow, Raymond L up to 3-0 or 9 points. Jen knows. Jen is a musical theater aficionado, so she really knows this stuff. All right, good game, PB Diamond. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for playing in the tournament, and yeah, thanks for the game. I'm only gonna be I'm only gonna play a few more, I think, but let's see. I think it's more fun. It seems like their field is pretty wide open, so my main goal was just getting this off the ground. So. Yeah, I'm very I appreciate everybody playing. I just wanted this is the first one. This is kind of an experiment, but I wanted to pair these with the lectures, so I'll probably play one or two more games. But Raymond's looking pretty good. Maybe I'll get one more game in against Raymond, but Pravilo 3-0 and many players with some good wins. So overall, this is great. I don't know. It's all just practice. You know, I didn't even know how to castle, to be completely honest. So this is all just for fun and for learning. Maybe I should play Raymond again. I don't know. Maybe I could get my rating back. I think my rating went down by about 120 points this tournament. Yes, I have the ghost. The ghost is my my emote. Jen's the best. um so yeah, that thread on H7. Yeah, no, thanks, Unconquered. Yeah, so anyone who's interested, you know, we just, the thing about it is, we're doing this tournament after the lecture every day, or at least we're going to try doing the tournament after the extra lecture every day. If you're a member of the chess.com club, the chess.com club is here, and just in case there's anybody on the stream who's not a member yet, this chess.com club is the way that you can join this club is basically here, and we're gonna do basically right after the stream every day. Today you know, I'm keeping the stream live, but after the stream we were gonna play a tournament. So there's this weekly 10-5 that's gonna be tomorrow at the same time as today. But yeah, we'd love to have you back on Conquer Foe, and thank you very much for joining the stream. Thanks everyone for joining the tournament. And yeah, we're gonna see if we can make this a daily thing, make it our own kind of chess club type thing, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. Everyone will get to kind of play everybody multiple times, and it should be cool. Is everyone anyone at 13 points yet? Okay. All right. Interesting. I'm gonna play this. Chess 960 is really interesting. I can't remember who recommended it, to be honest, but these pawn structures are really cool to play with. These like, look how powerful these bishops are in this game already. You know, knight to e7, knight to d6, and then pressure. Basically, the thing's gonna expand over here. You know, d4 is gonna be playable. White's gonna be expanding on the king side and or in the center, and yeah, overall, just basically powerful bishops, but not even ones that you kind of created, ones that were just kind of there to start the game. Chess 960 is really weird and interesting. Raymond 4-0. Raymond's 4-0 so far, and yeah, he's closing in on 2,200 2200 on his 960 rating. No, Raymond's playing well. I'm not sure I can catch. I guess there's still plenty of time, but playing well. Well, it's good. I'm glad it was competitive. This is a tough. Everyone's playing well. It's a strong tournament. Uh, I don't know. I don't know. This is a these positions are such a mess. This is great. I think I'll make the next game my last one. I got to this. I mean, this position doesn't look like anything. Uh, I'm trying to attack, but I'm like worried about my queen safety, and like there's a lot of yeah. See, like knight to c6, and I have to deal with this threat on the queen. But I don't know. These positions are just nuts. No, I'm like way. Honestly, I'm not so. I don't know how to play this tournament. It looks like Aphelion and Raymond are having a good game, but I'm gonna play. I'm gonna play one more, and then I'll close out the stream. But yeah, this has been really cool. This is great. Great tournament. Great yeah, great turnout, and thank you all very much for playing in it. So yeah, this is very cool for a first try. Thanks to whoever recommended Chess 960. This too created a very interesting, set of games to look at. But yeah, really cool, and yeah, I guess we'll be doing this. We'll be doing this post lecture in the mornings from now on. I don't know if I'll always be here for it, but definitely like turning this. We can basically have our own little club here. 17 players is great. That's a great turnout. That's a lot of players and enough to have a tournament basically. So yeah, overall, really happy with this. Interesting. Thanks, Unconquered Foe. Yeah, thanks. I hope you join us for future streams. And yeah, we're just getting this. We're just getting this chess tournament infrastructure set up. So thanks a lot for being here, Unconquered Foe, and thanks for joining. Yeah. No, thanks. Yeah, and feel free to invite whoever you'd like to the club too. However, let's see. I'm trying to come up with a tactic here, but I'm not sure if this is gonna work. Whatever. Jen is the best. I'm not sure I'm doing so well in this. Yeah, no, he's playing well. I overplayed my tactic. These games are difficult. I think so. I'm like, this is brutal. I don't even know what to do. Uh-oh. Maybe bishop there? I'm pretty sure this is bad for black. All right, that was gross. Sorry about that, Lefty. Thank you for playing. That was pretty gross. But thanks, Lefty very clearly was about to win. But thank you very much for the game, Lefty, and thank you very much for joining the tournament. I'm gonna play one more, and then I'm gonna take a break. But yeah, thanks, Alexandre. Thanks. Here we go. Here's our game. Good luck, Alexandre, and thank you very much for playing in the tournament. Good luck. I should have lost the last one. My opponent played excellently in the last game, and I totally blew my attack. And Raymond is playing well. Raymond is in this to win this. He's up a good amount on the field. All right, this is gonna be my last game. Um, but yeah, this is great. This is a great turnout, really fun, and yeah, thanks everyone so much for playing. Yeah, let's see. Uh, Tough games. Oops. Uh oh. Maybe. I don't know. This is just complicated. I'm not sure exactly what to do. I have to watch out. I don't know. See, I'm not sure I did this correctly. This looks bad. Queen to b7 looks bad for black. Wow, Raymond running away with this. Yeah. Yep. I agree. Yep, that looks pretty good. Yeah, these are really interesting. Honestly, I'm not used to playing these at all. This is these are really interesting positions and complicated. Close game. All right, very good game, Alexandre. I got so lucky. Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much for the game, Alexandre. You were much better, and I got lucky in 2 games in a row. These games are really junky, but anyways, I think we could take a look at the analysis. That was a really intense game, Alexandre. I feel bad. I think you should have won that one. But yeah, good. Thanks for the game. I feel like I got lucky 2 games in a row. So I think this sort of demonstrates the junk that I play. But thanks all very much for being here. Yeah, of course. Yeah, we can take a look. Send it to me on the Discord, Alexandre. We can take a look. I'm sure you had winning chances there. I feel like I got very lucky in that one. On that note, I'm gonna call it for the day. Since this tournament seems to be seems to be going, and Raymond is playing well. Man, Raymond's in pretty good chance for to win this. Yeah, no, for sure, Alexandre. I mean, I think if we look at that, you're gonna find a bunch of wins. So I got very lucky. Very junky play on my side. But thanks very much for playing. Thanks all very much for being here and for playing this tournament. And the next tournament on the stream is going to be tomorrow at the same time. So thanks all very much for being here. Thanks for joining the stream. And yeah, a few lucky wins by me. Not the best demonstration of me playing, but thanks all. Thanks all for being here, and this was a lot of fun. So I'm gonna wrap this up. Next stream is at 9:35 p.m. Eastern tonight. Good luck, Raymond, on closing out the win on this tournament. Looks like you're playing some pretty good games, and yeah, very cool, fun stuff. But we're gonna match this. We're gonna match tournaments to the end of the stream from now on, and see how that goes. So thanks very much for being here, everybody. Thanks all for playing, and have a good day, everyone. Thanks. Bye.